Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you. This is how we do it. Well, you never know what happened behind the show before it comes on air, but this is how we do it anyway. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris Honors, and this is the J Request Show. Today's show, I'll be joined by three wonderful, amazing guests on the show. My first guest, she's going to be talking about issue regarding migrant. Every time there's issue in the country, migrants have always been the one to be picked upon, so she's not happy with it, and she wants to share more insight about better ways to go about it. And also, coming up on the show, I'll be joined by Volunteer Island Director Nina, a very good self. She's going to be talking about the great work our administration is going to be doing, or they are doing in the island, in the country. Wow. Anyway, I'll be joined by the Sickle Island Director, Esther, and also our Project Director, another person, Debola, all going to be joining me on the show. So stay tuned for more of this coming your way. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you. And my guest on the show is Maria. Show some love, everyone, please. Woo! Great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate that. And now, while you're on the show today, we're talking about migrant issue. You were listening to radio. There was this wonderful woman with 6 kids, and she stepped in a gas station, and the radio station picked it up, and then they start talking about it. And you're unhappy because people kind of giving their own opinion, and one of the opinion would be migrants be picked upon. Is that correct? Why are you not happy about this? Give us your own insight.
I'm not happy because of the danger of one single story, and I'm quoting Chimamanda Adichie.
Okay.
You know, she said that there's a danger with one single story. So when one person talk about something and there is no second voice to it, that it creates a scenario where the equal, I don't know how to say it, but it kind of...
just point to one direct direction. It doesn't give more diversity of...
Exactly. And it kind of silenced the other one. So that was why I went on and I started talking about it, because I wanted my own side of the story as a migrant woman to be heard. And I know that I represent a lot of migrant people in this country. So I was listening to this radio. I was driving and I was listening on the radio.
Okay.
And suddenly it was about this woman, and all of a sudden people start calling in, and you know there was also a lady on the show talking about African migrant, somebody from Cameroon and all that. And before I knew it, it's all about how the migrant people are taking over, you know, the housing units, that the refugee are impacting on the housing list and all that. So it kind of made me to realize that, hang on a second here, they are blaming the immigrants here. And that got me angry, because that's not true. You know, like if you look at the CSO statistic in 2016, it was saying about, you know, like the high percentage of homeless people would be Irish people, followed by maybe people from UK, Poland, and all that. So how that kind of hierarchy of homelessness was just skipped down to African migrants. And they started talking about African migrants, how they come and they feel like they have to take the place, like a demand, you know. And I'm like I said in my video, I do not condone people going to housing, you know, social welfare housing and wanting to take, you know, over when they are not entitled to it. But I'm just saying that it doesn't really reflect all the migrants, because there are migrant people here that are working and paying tax.
True.
So the problem is not the migrants. The problem is that there is low supply of housing. Unemployment is on the rise. If you look at the statistic, you see that people that are even working are homeless, and those that are not working are also homeless. But if you look, you see that the high number will be with either people who are, you know, not working, poverty, unemployment, and even students. You know, we have a lot of people coming in to study in Ireland, and they all need house. All these things all
kind
add
of
up
added
together.
So this whole issue is all about the woman with 6 kids.
Yes.
She's unable to get where to put up for the night. She
Yeah.
ended up going to the station, which is
Yes.
the gas station.
Yeah.
And then it turned out to be that, radio station pick up that content.
Yes.
And they it's sort of them dealing with a very subject.
Yes.
It is being narrated to migrants.
Yes.
And that's where your point is coming
And
from.
that's what they call the traditional scapegoating, like blaming the migrant. Every time there is an issue of consign, like national consign, there's always a way that migrants will come in. They'll be scapegoated, they'll be blamed for it.
Yeah, but do you
instead
not
of
think
dealing, like this woman at the moment, as I'm talking to you now, she's been moved out again from the emergency house where she is to another, to Jamkanja.
You're already following the story very well.
Yeah,
isn't
she can't even put her kids in school. Like, why
Yeah.
not concentrate on how to deal with the situation
Sure.
in the country? Build more houses. Supply maybe student houses as well and all that. Why not concentrate on the main issue? Instead of just bringing migrant into it, then automatically, they are creating perception and attitudes towards migrants that is not nice. So the refugees are this and they are,
Yeah, so which means for younger generation, if such content are used like this, it doesn't give good perspective about migrant because they'll be thinking the other way around. And that's not the truth way because most migrants are hardworking people.
Yes.
In a society like this, yes, you have good and bad and ugly. It's always there, So what would be your kind of advice going forward that you want to give to make sure that people who are listening to radio stations or even watching TV stations or even doing anything at all, if it relates to issues, what would be your advice for that?
I say people should be sensitive and respect, migrants in the country. Not to believe every story they hear. People can come up and tell story about how migrant did this, and that's one migrant. That's not the whole migrants.
Okay.
Because there are loads of migrants working in the hospital, working in IT and all that, and they're paying the taxes, and they're paying the rent, and they are doing everything to contribute to the society. So it's not when maybe 1 or 2 migrants do something bad. You use one brush and tar the whole migrants as
that's
one.
bad. Okay.
That's what I want people to realize every time they listen to the radio show.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Come on, show some love for my wonderful. Thank you so much. I think she said it all. I don't think I have anything to even say on top of that, but thank you so much for sharing that. So people at home, viewers, wherever you are, look, don't just put the blame on migrants. That will be my support. When there's issue, deal with the issue. Don't spread it around because the older generation, younger people who are watching the show or listening to this content, they're gonna have the same way of thinking. That's not the way we want Ireland to be in the future. So we'll all learn a lesson from this. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming in. Come on, show one more love, please. All right, coming up on the show, I'll be joined by the director of Volunteer Island. I don't know why that keeps skipping my head. And Sickle Island. We'll be right back. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the show, everybody. Woo! Good to see you. Hello, everybody. From my left, what's the name?
Nina from Volunteer Ireland.
And
Esther Onolememen from Sickle Cell Society Ireland.
And also
Debola, Sakinah, Adul-Ibiyeye from Sickle Cell Society Ireland.
wonderful. Come on, show some love, everybody. Woo! Thank you very much, ladies. What a way on how we kick today's show. Thank you for all coming in on the show. First, Nina, let's start with yourself. Tell us about yourself, first of all.
I am the CEO of Volunteer Ireland. I am originally from Sweden and I moved here to Ireland 4 years ago, and now I work with this great organisation that promotes volunteering in Ireland.
Wow, fantastic. Come on, wow. And Esther, let's just meet you.
I am the CEO and founder of Sickle Cell Society Ireland, and I have lived in Ireland for nearly 18 years.
Wow.
Now I'm still counting.
Wow, still counting. Come on. And Debola, let's meet you.
I'm same as Esther. I've lived here for almost 18 years in Ireland, and I'm the project coordinator for Sickle Cell Society Ireland.
Wow, wow, wow. Beautiful. This is what I want to see on the show. You know, we're talking about Migrant, we're talking about what we do and things, but this is the color of what we talk about on the show. So, Nina, let's talk about yourself. Volunteer Ireland is doing great work. So give us more insights. What's happening in your organization?
So Volunteer Ireland we are an independent charity. We work to promote and support and celebrate volunteering in Ireland. And our vision is an Ireland where everybody who wants to volunteer can volunteer.
Okay.
So there's already very high levels of volunteering in Ireland. We're a number 1 in Europe, number 11 in in the world in terms of volunteering.
Wow.
But the kind of work that we do to continue and grow that trend is we run a few big campaigns. So we have National Volunteering Week each year. We have the Volunteer Ireland Awards, where we nominate the best, we anoint the best volunteer in Ireland. That's coming up in December. And as of tomorrow, people can nominate volunteers for those awards.
Wow.
So that's all about celebrating the amazing work that volunteers do across Ireland. Everyone who gets nominated gets a thank you card from us, and then 30 people are shortlisted and are invited for a gala awards ceremony in Dublin on the 7th of December this year. Wow. So if anybody knows a great volunteer that they'd like to nominate for this award, you can go to volunteer.ie.
Come on, people, come on, special love for that. Wonderful, wonderful.
But we do loads of other work as well. We do loads of work with organizations that, for example, you guys who might involve volunteers. So nonprofit organizations who involve volunteers, they often struggle with their volunteer program, with recruiting volunteers, with training them, with retaining them, with making sure they have good volunteer management practices in place. So we do loads of training for organizations on that. We also work with companies. Employee volunteering is becoming really huge. So a lot of the big, especially the big American, but also Irish companies and small and medium-sized companies who want their employees to volunteer, we help them with that. We also have a service where events and festivals who need volunteers, we help them manage and run that. And then probably maybe the most interesting to your viewers is that we host the national database of volunteering opportunities.
Wow.
So we work with, there's a local volunteer centre in every county in Ireland, and they do the on the ground hard work of matching individuals who want to volunteer and organizations who need volunteers. And that's all done through this one national database. So you can, if you wanted to volunteer, say you wanted to volunteer, you could go to that website, volunteer.ie, or you could go to your local volunteer centre in whatever county you live in, and you could search, look for volunteering opportunities based on your exact location, what cause you care about, and what kind of activity you'd like to do.
Wonderful. Come on, show some love for that. So much. Let's go to Esther quickly there. So tell us, sickle cell, first let's start well with the job you're really doing. It is not an easy job, I know you've been on the show nearly 4 or 5 years ago, I say so. And we brought you back on again because it's good to see what people like you are doing. It is not easy to carry on, and I understand your family and things you're going through as well. So where are you guys at right now on Sickle Cell Island? Give us more insight.
Basically, for people that don't know the work we do, we are a non-for-profit organization, and we're self-funded at the moment, and we depend on donations from, very kind-hearted people in the community like yourselves. So some of the work we do, we have family support services to support families with sickle cell, especially, for instance, we might have families in hospital who would have attended hospital out of emergency, crisis situation, and would have been there without, any form of readiness. So we have a project where we, raise funds, we bring in the needful, say for instance, sometimes we donate money to Crumlin through CMROF, and in other times we could donate things that they might need, for instance, so. For
just viewers who are just tuning in right now straight away, give us a little bit insight of what sickle cell is all about, because in Ireland, I was talking to you during the week about the sickle cell, and you really gave us a lot of more breakdown about it. For people who don't know what sickle cell is all about, give us a little bit each of it, just something for people to understand the whole brain behind it.
Okay, I would say sickle cell is a genetic condition, and it affects our red blood cells. And sickle cell, just to clarify, it's not contagious. It can only affect a child where either of the parents has the carrying gene. For instance, say a parent is AA and the mother is AA, they only have the chances of having a child who is AS. But where a parent is AS, which is the carrying gene, and a mother is AS, and the other parent is AS, they stand a chance, 1 in 4 chances of having a child who has full-blown sickle cell. And a child with full-blown sickle cell has the red blood cell is in a crescent form, while every other person would have like their red blood cell in a donut shape. So what happens with a child with sickle cell is that the crescent cell shape cell breaks down every day. And this can cause blockage to any part of the body, especially the major organs. And it can be very life-threatening depending on the level of breakdown. And this period, while all this is happening, it's called a crisis period. Wow. So for people with, sickle cell crisis, they can go from very minor to really, really severe crisis where they are hospitalized. And it can go from just being in hospital for a few days to being in hospital, like my child would have been there and fully ventilated, for a very long time, owing to sickle cell crisis with multiple organ failures and all of that.
Wonderful. Come on, wonderful. Come on, show some love. Well, that was very strong, Esther, but braveness for you and bravo to you. Let me bring Debola in. Debola, you are the project coordinator in the organization. What role would you play, and how does that add to what Esther just said there?
What we do, as my role as a project coordinator and fundraising coordinator, as Esther has just said to you, we don't have any funding. So most of the time, the funding will come from Esther's personal funds. I was like, we can't do that. So really, because it's not sustainable.
She didn't even mention it.
Yeah, she didn't say that. She didn't. But I was just like, we cannot do that because it's not sustainable. So we thought, okay. So really my role would be to look after all of the projects that Sickle Cell Society Ireland will get involved with. So let's say we want to plan, maybe events. To go to Nigeria, events or stuff like that, or to support families that are in the hospital. So any project that we decide to take upon, I would, in conjunction with her, really, kind of manage the project from start to finish. And if we're looking for fundraising, because we needed that role, because there was no way. I said, look, we cannot. And she said, look, if you're going to do that, fine. So what we do is what we started to do is reach out to companies. Like we want to go into corporate companies and say, look, offering them opportunities to have like a gold or diamond or silver membership to support Sickle Cell Society every year. So that way, when we do get funds, we have opportunity of being able to have funds in our to do the much needed work and awareness that we do, because anything that we need to do really, we need a lot of funds to get that go. Even events that we need to create awareness, we do need funds to get that going. So that's what we struggle with. So that's why that's what I would really look after, project and fundraising.
Wow,
really.
Wonderful. Come on, show some love for the I really like it. Listen, it's all about the kitchen. Look, we're going to go on a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have Nina, Esther, and also Debola. We'll be right back after this. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you. That was fun. That's great. Guys, thank you so much. I thought you all gone, but you're still here anyway. Thank you so much there. Before we go on the break there, I know Debola was talking about the great work she is doing with the Sickle. So come back to yourself. What actually inspired you to get into Volunteer Ireland?
I've always worked for non-profit organizations, and I actually come from an environmental background. But what I love about this job is with volunteering, you get to see every single aspect of organizations working, whether it's with homelessness or with animals or with economic exclusion or with rural isolation, or you name it, any cause, any good cause you can think of, there's volunteers involved. And it actually made me think just earlier when you were talking about Maria, and volunteering lets you see the best part of humanity. And with the issues Maria raised around how migrants are viewed in this country, there's a really positive side to the story, which is that on our database, about 35% of volunteers are non-nationals. Wow. So the levels of volunteering... So the levels of volunteering in migrant communities, refugees and asylum seekers, any foreigner or non-Irish national coming to the country are very high. And obviously it's a great way for people to meet people. It's a great way for people to learn the language if English isn't their first language. It's a great way to feel integrated. True. All people, whether they're Irish or not, or non-Irish, talk about how volunteering makes them feel more part of a community. So there's this really, really positive side to volunteering and to the migrant story.
Wonderful.
That's the other side of the coin.
Wonderful. Wow. Let me bring Debola before I go back to Esther there. So let's not wrap this. So, Debola, so going forward, what are the other things that Sickle Cell Ireland is putting out there? Because every organization does need funding, needs support.
Yes.
Companies out there needs to be part of what you do, and healthcare is very, very important. You know, sickle cell issue is not something you just walk in and walk out.
Yeah.
So what would be your word out there to our viewers and people in the audience?
Really, what I would really want to say, Chris, is would really want support of corporate companies to kind of give us the main work to do, framework to kind of do our job to help create the awareness. A couple of years ago, when you come to Ireland, even the GPs had no idea of what sickle cell was about. And then the kind of work that we do has kind of brought, awareness to hospitals, GP, like years ago when you go to A&E, if you present a child with sickle cell disease, we'd have to wait with everybody else in line. But the kind of work we do has now created the awareness that when someone does go into the hospital with presenting a sickle cell crisis, they need to be seen straight away.
Wow, amazing. That's a good work. Thank you. Esther, you are the CEO of the organization. So what would be your final word to back up what Debola just said there now?
I suppose it will be important for government to see sickle cell as a priority public health concern, because even the WHO would have identified sickle cell as third most, public health concern in 2008. And since then, I do not think, other member states would have taken this on board. And I suppose some of the challenges we have, it's been viewed even from research that sickle cell is something that affects mainly people from tropical zone or from black, ethnic minority countries. But I want to let everybody know, and including viewers and the native Irish community, that sickle cell is a condition that do not know race or any political, standing. And
just
it's
like
a
cancer.
genetic, exactly, it's a genetic condition. And it can only, happen to a child where two parties are involved in marriage and there is procreation, having a child. And say, for instance, in the next 10 to 15 years, sickle cell is going to become a native Irish problem. If attention is not given to it by the government now, I suppose we will be in for a major health crisis. For instance, in Nigeria, we have over 40 million people directly affected by sickle cell. Globally, we have the highest, burden of sickle cell, and the majority people affected by sickle cell in Ireland are Nigerian. So if you even look at the statistics, I'm not saying here that, we have brought in something negative. No. However, what I'm saying is there is something that has to be dealt with by the government, and government should take responsibility as much as they have taken responsibility in dealing with hemophilia, in dealing with cancer, in dealing with HIV and AIDS, and every other condition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, wonderful. Wonderful. Right, we don't have the time. We could have been going on and on and on, but show some love for Nina, everybody. And Esther, everyone. And to Debola as well. And before we wrap this up, say some wonderful round of applause for Maria, everybody. All right, this is how we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I think we'll get all the information we needed today. For viewers at home, thank you for tuning in. As always, it's the Jerry Quest Show. But don't forget, migrants are one of those people you need in every country, in every society. Do not neglect them or use any other issues to rob their own issue. We all come from the same place. We all love what we do. Even though we move from where we are and come to every country, we always want to play an impact in it. So thank you for tuning in, and make sure you set a good example. For everyone in the studio, and my guests and the production crew, thank you all, and thank you. We'll see you next week. Take care. God bless. Bye for now.